All right, everybody, welcome back to another Rob and Stu show. Rob, out this week, out next week, currently in Costa Rica. He's working for the Phils, taking a little look at left-handed ambidextrous pitchers in Costa Rica. Good luck to him. Hopefully he can help out the Phillies. They need it. They suck. Coming up on today's show, Justin Spiro, the Spiro Avenue show. He's going to talk about my Spartans, who's got it better, Detroit sports in general. We'll talk about the Tigers, who are I don't know, the world's biggest dumpster fire. I guess that's a nice way to put it. That's coming up on the flip side of this. But we start with a great friend, my guy, dude that's been on this show multiple times. We have a good back and forth. A compadre. You can catch him on FanDuel TV, the new TVG, FanDuel TV. Always his eponymous, I learned that from PTF, his eponymous show available wherever you get your podcasts, in the Money Media, also on YouTube. He is Matt F Word. F Word stands for freaking Bernier. Matthew, outside of the Terriers hat, how are you? How are things?
I'm good, Stu. Good to catch up again. It's been a minute, but yeah, man, I'm feeling good in Arkansas for the first time in my life. I've never been down here before. Looking out the hotel window at the first turn at Oaklawn. So ready for the Rebel this weekend.
Who's got it better? Who has got it better? Anybody outside Arkansas, maybe, but
Yeah. I was going to say there are a handful of people that probably have it better, but I have it very well. I have it very good.
It's true. Oaklawn, is this so obviously your first visit to Oaklawn? What's your initial impressions when you get to a new track or around a new track? Do you do a walk around? Do you just go straight to whatever you're doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I got in late last night on Wednesday night. It's Thursday afternoon right now. I typically just kind of morning of, whenever we've got something going on, I'll try to find out wherever the set is. Luckily and thankfully, I've been to most of these places more than a handful of times, so I kind of know the lay of the land. But this is, oddly enough, this is the second time in the past 3 weeks that I've been to a venue I've never been before. I hadn't been to Golden Gate Fields in San Francisco area until a few weeks ago, so had to kind of learn the lay of the land there, and it'll be the same here with Oaklawn. It's early enough. I've still got work to do for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but I may just bop around. They've got this whole hotel and casino attached to the clubhouse turn, and I'll probably go explore a little bit here shortly. But for the most part, I'm very boring when I'm on the road. I'm in the room. I go to work. I do what I need to do. I come back to the room. I have a drink. I have some food, and I get ready for the next day. And I try to keep it to a dull roar. It's not the most glamorous sort of setup. Other people do things much more, enjoyably and entertaining sort of fashions. I'm very much a homebody. I'm 50, internally, even though I may only be 33.
It's scary that you're younger than me, but I guess 80s babies, right? When you went to Golden Gate, quick question, is it true that when you meet Matt Dinnerman, you have to bow and throw rose petals at him? Your thoughts?
You know what the funniest thing was? I go walking in the front door, getting ready to walk through the turnstile, and I look up and the first person in front of me is Matt Dinnerman, and I'm like, I know this isn't where you call the races from. And he's like, no, just, I was on my way going here, there, and everywhere.
He is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. Just not even in horse racing, just genuinely.
Yes. He's a super nice guy. He took time and chatted with me for probably 15, 20 minutes that day. And that was leading into the first race of the day, where he had to run upstairs and then call the race like 15 minutes later. And then also on top of that, I met him. He came, he was at the hotel restaurant that I was staying at on Saturday night after the El Camino. We got to chat for, I don't know, probably 15, 20 minutes there as well. So he's just super nice. I think he's incredible at what he does. It's refreshing to have young voices in positions like that. And I know there are only a handful of, announcing jobs in the entire country, but I think he does as good a job as anyone.
Oh, absolutely. I just wish you would pick better friends than Tyler Hoffman, scumbag. Uh, let's okay. So you moved into a new role, and I think it's really exciting. When I'm out in Jersey visiting Roberto, and I look up at the bar, and it was a good bar because they had FanDuel TV on. And I look up and I see lovely Matt Bernier's face, and I go, all right, roll tide. Let's go. Can you talk a little bit about what your first impressions? I know you're just settling into the gig. It's still a short term since you started. What are your thoughts and how's it going?
Well, it's been it's a little odd in that respect because I mean, for those that don't know, I had been working with these folks on and off about 3 years ago for a long period of time. It was probably about a 6-month stretch, with the thought that it was going to evolve into something bigger. And I know the idiots on Twitter, all come to their conclusions about, no, they tried this and it didn't work before, or the whole world shut down and, businesses needed to take sort of steps to, plan accordingly. We all did. But my last trip out to TVG was the Wednesday. I flew back to Boston on a Sunday, and then that week was when the NCAA tournament was canceled, the players was canceled, and the world shut down, and everything got shelved from that point on. Something not many people know. We had conversations last year about me doing some work for them during the summer. It didn't work out for a few different reasons. And then this kind of came to fruition again right around Thanksgiving time, and we hammered out the details, and things have been going since the beginning of January down in Gulfstream. It's so in a weird way, it is new, but I know all the players at hand. I've worked with all of them, and I know management. So it's not really like I'm total babe in the woods. Yes, I'm the new guy, and I'm just trying to kind of go and do my job and fall in line. But at the same time, these are people that I've already worked with, and I know. So it's not totally as if a new hire goes into a new arena and they're really trying to figure things out. I've worked with these producers and these directors and obviously the on air folks many times before. So it's not really as though I'm coming in in the dark.
And how I know we haven't talked about this, but your handicapping style, has it altered it? Has it given you a little bit more free time to dig deeper, add new stuff into it? How's it altering how you look at the races?
Well, I personally have enjoyed it because it's more concentrated on being on site as opposed to when I was going out to TVG. I would be in studio for a period of time, and we would have 3 or 4 different tracks ongoing, and we still do have to deal with that from time to time. But I'm on site for the most part for a lot of these events, and the focus is here at this track for this day. So for this weekend, it's Rebel. Last weekend, it was the Risen Star down at the fairgrounds. The weekend prior, it was El Camino. So it was basically all Golden Gate. It was all fairgrounds. This weekend, it's all Oaklawn. You sprinkle in a couple other things that kind of slot in between. But I can kind of devote my time to one track. And in this week between, when I'm home, I'm home. I don't do any work. That's part of the deal, was knowing that I'm on the road as much as I am now. When I'm home, I got to be dad and I have to be husband. And I want to. So I'm not doing any extra work in that sense. But in the travel time and in days like today, in the hotel, it's going back and looking at charts for the past 3 weeks here at Oaklawn and saying, all right, well, 6 furlong dirt races. They only run dirt races here. What's sort of the trend? Are there things that you can kind of glean as opposed to more of the simulcast handicapper where you've got a rapid fire jump from Laurel to Aqueduct to Gulfstream to Tampa? And I mean, there's only so much time to devote to any given track at any given time. With this sort of instance, Friday, it's Oaklawn. Saturday, it's Oaklawn. Sunday, it's Oaklawn. And Sunday night, I fly home and get ready for next weekend, which will be Gulfstream, 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 which I personally enjoy a lot more when I can kind of sink my teeth into one certain track at any given time.
Yeah. You didn't mention Belterra. That's okay. That's okay in your list. That's
I
okay.
apologize.
Yeah, no, it's your first warning. You're there for the Rebel this weekend, my friend. And just looking at it cursory, because I know you said we're still got to go over Friday, all of Saturday. There's 74 races at Oaklawn because that's just what they do in Arkansas. But it really seems like this Rebel. I mean, should it just be the Brad Cox Invitational at this point?
I mean, he's got a heavy hand, verifying down on the inside. I thought the last run was visually, when you first watched it, was really good. But then when you go back and you take a look at the chart and see what the second and third place finishers did, they both came back and won their next start. One of them almost equaled their buyer. The other one improved by 8 points. All of a sudden now you look at it and go, okay, well, he dusted that field by 5. That was his first start in a couple of months. What are we going to get here? I will say I continue to be skeptical about how far the Justifies really want to go. I know the bottom, there's plenty of pedigree there for this horse to run all day. His older sister is Midnight Bisu, but the Justifies, if you take a look at some of the raw numbers, they're far more sprinty than Rowdy. Keep that in the back of your mind going forward. And if it's not him, Giant Mischief's running the springboard mile at Remington in December. For him blowing the start as badly as he did, to make that wide move around the far turn where he's 6-7 paths wide, and he's like a car just driving around the rest of the field. I'm not going to hold it against him that he couldn't finish the deal to a horse, the local horse that had the dream trip up the inside. I thought he ran really well for his first time going 2 turns. I still look at that pedigree and I go, I don't know how far you really are going to want to go. Vertical Oak was a fast horse going short. Into Mischiefs, they can do anything. But just purely on numbers, I mean, it's those two, and then everyone else you got to try to get a little bit cute to make a case for. I'm sure I'm going to do that because I don't know. I mean, I don't find it all that appealing to take 7-5 and 9-5 on either of the Cox horses. I think there are other good quality runners in this race that you can try to get a little more creative with, and maybe they don't win, but you can use them underneath for sure.
I'll ask you this. We're coming up to Derby time. Obviously, where you can get them, Derby futures are always fun to play at this point. You're a guy that is always looking at this stuff. And the last few years, I mean, you've given some solid, like, here's a horse to watch. And I know last year, I forget the horse's name, but I remember looking at it going, I'll put $5 down. At least it got in the gate. And at least I had a $5, whatever. But we're getting closer. What are your thoughts, Derby futures wise? Is there some value in the market?
Well, so I guess bigger picture and sort of more broadly, I think it's been a little bit of a lackluster season so far. And I'm not one of those folks that likes to just sit here and say, oh, this crop of 3-year-olds is no good at the end of February, because truth be told, we won't know. And it's not the sexy answer, but we won't know what these horses are for another 3 or 4 years when we can look back and say, oh, I'm making it up. Croupi ended up being a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, but right now as a 3-year-old, he's got some to find. I think by and large, it's been a little bit of a suspect group, maybe with the exception of Arabian Night, who looks like he could be anything. I know, some people have drawn the obvious parallels. Baffert, Oaklawn, wet track, won for fun, beat a good field with the American Pharoah kind of comp. Maybe he ends up being that. But I think aside from him, we'll see what Forte is when he comes back next weekend in the Fountain of Youth. But you don't have anyone that really has grabbed the bull by the horns, at least by my estimation. I think you've got good horses. I don't think you've got a superstar standout right now. So for me, selfishly, the only horse that I bet in the last future pool, which closed, 2 weeks ago now, was Tappett's Conquest, who ran in the Risen Star last weekend at Fairgrounds. And frankly, I wasn't in love with the performance. He finished fourth. He had a hot pace to run into. He's still green. He didn't appreciate the kickback. Flo had to really start pumping on him on the first turn. I mean, he seems like a bit of an incomplete project at this point. But at the same time, he earned an 85 buyer. The race prior, he earned an 84. So he's effectively paired up tops, which I always think can kind of lead to a forward move in their next start. If he's green and he moves forward, and I don't think there are any superstars, I mean, there are worse places to be than having a ticket on him at 66 to 1. But by and large, I think this group of 3-year-olds right now, it's very much up for grabs. I don't think there's anyone that's really kind of asserted themselves as the horse to beat.
Is there a specific prep that you look towards? And I know there's historical trends out there, but is there one that you're going to be really keen on that you've already identified that may play a bigger part in how you look at that?
Well, like you said, everything seems like it's cyclical where, there was that stretch of years where Santa Anita did nothing but produce Derby winners. The Florida Derby produced really quality runners. Aqueduct for a while had struggled.
Oaklawn as well.
Oaklawn as well, whether it was, I know Country House was put up via DQ, but you look at the American Pharoah path, you look at some of the other runners that have come through here. But then at the same time, everybody likes to dump on the Aqueduct path. Well, last year, it produced Mo Donegal, who ended up winning the Belmont. I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to say hit or miss, but it all depends on what you've got for the local runners or the horses that go through that path. My long-term thesis, my hypothesis, is that the Fairgrounds path will continue to grow in importance, not just right now, but going forward, for two reasons. One, because of the stretch run that the Fairgrounds has. It is extremely long. It's extremely demanding. And I think it's a very good test. And Brad Cox, I think, even said it in the post-race interview last weekend. It's a good test to find out how far your horse really wants to go. If you're getting real short at the end of that run, I know it's February, but it probably doesn't bode well for a 1.25 miles going forward. If you've got a horse that's still reaching, maybe they're still green and figuring it out, but they're not really hitting the wall at the end, okay, fine. The second reason is that Louisiana Derby, the final race, the final prep in New Orleans, is the longest domestic prep that there is. It's at 1 3/16. It's the distance of the Preakness, and it's only a 16th of a mile shorter than the Kentucky Derby. And where it's placed on the calendar, I believe now it is either 5 or 6 weeks out from the first Saturday in May. And with the way that these 3-year-olds are campaigned, I think a lot of trainers are really going to look at that and say, we get the long stretch, we get the longest race carded in the United States domestically leading into the Derby, and we get 5 or 6 weeks ahead of time to get them right and ready to go for that big race. I just think going forward, that's going to end up being a very, very productive and important path for those reasons.
I can't let you go, Matt, without asking you a question about our beloved Red Sox. I forgot to tell you, I went up to Boston last fall, caught a game. Fenway. If you haven't been to Fenway, I mean, you need to get your life right. It's phenomenal. Every time phenomenal. Over under 14 wins for the Red Sox. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's probably not many more than that. And I know that sounds doom and gloom, but it doesn't even, put it this way. The only good thing they did this year was lock up Devers. Yoshida.
Are you letting Xander walk?
Yeah, for that price and for that contract, yeah, I don't think you can, in good conscience, I don't think you can sign a 30-year-old to an 11 middle infielder, by the way, to an 11-year, $280 million deal. I just don't think you can do that. My friend's argument is, all right, if you don't want to commit long term, just front load a short deal. Cut him a 4-year deal for $135 or $140 million. You're going to overpay in the short term, but you're going to get the best out of him. And, from the player's standpoint, maybe you end up getting another contract, but I understand you want that long-term security. I don't fault them for that. I have such a difficult time with a straight face saying And to be fair, I think they made some other decent moves. Again, the Japanese outfielder could be nice. It sounds like they overpaid for him. I don't know if Adam Duvall can play anymore. Uh, Mondesi, the kid from the Royals, seems like a talent. I don't know
He's
how healthy he'll
serviceable.
be.
He's serviceable.
The most egregious piece to me is you did nothing to your pitching staff. And the thought that you're not hoping, you're reliant on a combination of Chris Sale and Corey Kluber is absurd.
But
I
if
mean,
we're playing in 2014 MLB, I mean
100%.
that's an amazing.
If you've got those two at the top of your rotation 8 years ago, you probably have the top two Cy Young candidates in the AL.
2015, the show. I mean, let's rock and roll, man.
I mean, you're really in good position. The problem is it's 2023. Corey Kluber, I think the number is something stupid like the last 3 years he's thrown 140 innings. Like, how are you? And he's slotted in as your two. How is this going to end well? I will say, I think Bayo is really talented. I'm hopeful for him, but you can't expect him to just automatically be like your number 3 starter. He's a kid still, figuring it out. I'm very down on this team. Oh, but it's fine. We have Kenley Jansen now, who's a heart attack waiting to happen as far as watching the game in the 9th inning. Not him personally, but just like it's impossible.
I mean, if you've seen a picture of Kenley, you're probably not far off.
No, but I want to make that clear. It was not meant to be a joke about him because I think he had a heart problem. It was more meant that when you watch him, if there's a runner that gets on, they automatically get to second base. I think he has the highest stolen base percentage against Major League Baseball in the past like 10 years.
Roller coaster.
So, well, I mean, genuinely, if there's a walk or a hit, it's not a hit now, or it's not a walk, it's a double. Because now you've got a guy in second base, and in theory, he's in a tight game. Either you're ahead by 1 or 2, or you're tied, or whatever it may be. It's a high leverage situation, and you automatically are starting with a runner on second. It might as well be extra innings.
He had that season in LA like 3 years ago where he was just lights out, where it was shut down. And I feel like he's just made a career off of that one season.
I said to my friends when it happened, I said, it's as though like they didn't learn from prior moves, because when they had Craig Kimbrell, when they first got him was sort of the Braves Craig Kimbrell. Like he was lights out. He was nails. And then slowly, understandably so, he's getting older and he's still doing it now. But a little bit of the tread is off the tires. And those 9th innings were not fun. You didn't have lights out 9ths. You always had to sweat it out. And I don't think they're going to be in position to have to sweat much this year. But when he's in, there's not going to be a comfortable 9th inning with Kenley Jansen on the mound. There's just not.
I got to ask you before we let you go here. Mitch Mayer. It's Michael Mayer, whatever his name. John Mayer.
Marcelo.
Same thing. Is he the next Nomar? I mean, everything I see, they're talking about him like he is Nomar with roids.
My fear is that they are expecting that, not projecting that it could happen. I'm afraid that I think some of the moves, if you really kind of read the tea leaves, this whole Trevor Story thing has been a disaster from jump. But the idea of, I think part of the reason they were as comfortable with letting Bogarts go, aside from the money, was that I think they think that this kid is going to be, maybe not this year, but next year could possibly be their starting shortstop. And I think he's 20 years old. Like that.
He's young.
I granted, Devers, it worked for whatever reason, but he's proven. One of my buddies is kind of, iffy on Devers, his long-term prospects, combination of, his body composition. And I mean, I don't think any of us love his defense at third base, but I don't think long-term he's a third baseman. Whether you move him to first base or eventually he's your DH. The only thing I care about is he hitting 40 home runs? Is he destroying the wall? That's going opposite field. Never mind pulling it around the pole. I don't think you can expect that from a kid. And I'm afraid they're expecting that from Meyer that he's going to end up being, you just slot him in as your starting shortstop next season. And I hope it happens, but boy, if he ends up being not even a bust, but if he ends up being meh, I mean, you've put a lot of your eggs into that basket. We'll find out. But I mean, to be fair, everything that you've seen from him, he was with Salem last year. I mean, the kid absolutely mashes, and he looks like Alex Rodriguez out there when he was 19.
Can you imagine drafting a high school pitcher from Oklahoma over him? Can you imagine that?
Well, I mean, again, you take your,
high
I guess,
pitcher,
organizational needs. I know, but
it's real hard.
And really,
it's real
I will
hard.
say, I don't think it could be the thing that ends up like saving Chaim Bloom his job, but I think they were all stunned that he felt, was it 3? I think they got him at 3.
Wasn't it?
Was it 4?
Yeah, it might have been 3 or 4.
3 or 4. It was one of those.
We took Joe about right before him, and it's like, what? Huh?
And he was sort of like, for the longest time leading in, he was just kind of like the unanimous top prospect.
Yeah.
So for him to fall to that point, we were all like, that's odd. Maybe there's something we don't know, or maybe everybody else just got too cute with it, and you let the best players slide.
It's the latter. He's just really good.
Yeah,
he's just really good.
I think he's, again, he's if you haven't watched him or you haven't seen him, I mean, he looks the part. He's another one though. Boy, he's going to eventually grow into that frame. How long is he going to be able to play shortstop? Is he going to be a third baseman down the road? If so, fine. But he's he looks the goods. Having said all that, doesn't mean anything if you can't get anybody out, and they don't have any pitchers. So,
well, that's true. We're going to talk more AL East, folks. We got Connor Norby, Locked On Orioles podcast coming on next week. AL East centric, everything in that me and Matt are talking about more in depth. But you can catch our friend Matt Bernier, the Matt Bernier Show, wherever you get your audio listening, Spotify, iTunes, Google's, bunny ears, however you consume it, it's there. Also on YouTube, on the In the Money Media Podcast Network. Matthew, FanDuel TV, that's the place to be. I have it on my secondary TV. I got my college basketball, but I have the ponies going around in circles. What times are you going to be on, and what days?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday and Sunday, I will be on the first half of the Oaklawn card. Saturday, I'll be on the back half of the card with the Honeybee and the Rebel as the main events.
Who's got it better, man? That's a beautiful thing. Hey, give your best, or my best, to your family, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Right after this break, Spiro Avenue is showing up, and we're going to talk about why the Tigers are 8.